Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Eye on the Tigers, in which I'm delighted to welcome back Jake, my first returning guest. Jake, would you just like to remind everybody out there when you were on last time
Yeah, of
and what we
course.
discussed?
Yeah, I was on last time. Sorry, yeah, let me start again. I'm Jake. On last time discussing about the last season we had with the whole Seahawks. Discussing about how the players were, the team was, and basically improvements for next season. But yeah, it was a good season.
Yep, indeed. Lovely. Well, thanks very much for coming back. And what we're going to discuss tonight is about imports in National League. As part of the conversation that we had last time, just sort of touched upon the imports a little bit. So,
Yeah, we
yeah,
did.
I thought it'd be quite interesting to just explore it in a bit more detail and have some time dedicated to
Yeah,
talking
definitely.
just
Yeah,
about that instead of trying to sort of squeeze it into an episode that was very much focused on the whole Seahawks and the season they had last season. So I'll
yeah,
kick off, I guess, with the headline, if you like, which is last season it was a three import league, and for the 25-26 season, it's going to be a four import league. So, what are your thoughts on the increase from three to four imports?
So I wasn't really expecting it at first. But I think it'd probably help the league for not in the long run, but for short run, I think it'd help the league. With obviously getting pop players, it'll help the. I don't know really how to say this. Obviously having a lot of sorry, a lot of people in your team, we're from like different countries. A lot help because obviously we don't have many British players on the teams. But it'll just help build that strong chemistry between the team. Obviously, fire them to like join scoring goals, getting points, keeping the defense strong, stuff, pucks going in, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's actually a good move for the league. So when I started watching, which was about 2008, 2009, sometime around about then. So it was the English Premier League was sort of second tier
Yeah,
at that time, and that was a four import league at that point. So it's kind of it's getting back to sort of where it was when I started watching, and I think it was sort of pretty well accepted at the time that actually four imports worked well. It was a competitive league. It was a good standard of hockey. So personally, I guess I'm pleased that it's got back to four imports. I'm really excited to see what the new season is going to bring, and sort of what that standard is going to be like with that extra import available for teams.
yeah, that's it. Looks. I agree with you totally. I've only been watching hockey since about 2017, but
Right.
I agree. Obviously, when the National League, they only had, was it two imports, three imports back in 2017? Can't exactly remember.
Started out two imports. I think we had two or three
Then it went,
seasons at that, and then we've had a couple of seasons with
yeah,
three
it went up to
imports.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's now come to four. So, but yeah, do you think it's gonna build to like five or six, or do you think it's gonna stay at about four or five?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. So I would be very happy for it to stay at four. I think if it increases further, so if it goes up to sort of five or six imports, I would say that the
Yeah,
National League probably has to actually start having closer links with the Elite League. So it does
definitely.
become
Yeah,
very much sort of that genuine pathway up, I guess, and
yeah,
perhaps an increase in imports at National League level would have to be
yeah,
sort of almost offset, if you like, by a decrease in
yeah,
imports at the elite league level. I think that's unlikely. I think the elite league are certainly happy with where they are, the import level. I think it's unlikely to decrease,
yeah,
certainly anytime soon. So if there's not going to be closeness between those leagues, then I would hope the imports don't increase beyond four. I
yeah,
do think it would be perhaps unwise for the league to do so because the English Premier League went up to sort of
definitely.
five imports and stuff around red hockey, which I don't think we've got time to go into today. And then yeah, the Premier League sort of no longer existed, and it was very much on sort of that
Yeah,
north and south basis. So I think four imports strikes a good balance between I guess giving teams a bit of tactical flexibility and bringing in some quality overseas players without starting to make it perhaps prohibitively expensive for some of those clubs with sort of smaller attendances, smaller fan bases.
yeah,
Yourself, could you
definitely.
see any
Yeah.
increase to sort of five or six imports?
I don't really know. Well, you don't really know at the end of the day, do you?
No.
Because this league changes left, right, and centre. But as I agree with you, we don't want it to turn into elite league where half the team's Canadian, and then you've got like about what, 4 or 5 British players in your team. Obviously, you don't want that because it'll just ruin the league, like it did with the English Premier League, as you said. But overall, I think if it did go to 5 or 6, I think only like to see it run for maybe one season just to test it out because you don't want to like have a load of like keep carrying on, just to see a team just literally just turn Canadian or like American.
Yeah. Interesting, but again, being honest, I don't think we tend to sort of see decreases in terms of the number of imports. So it could be a trial, but I sort of get the suspicion that any trial would soon become, I guess, a permanent setup in terms of how the
Yeah,
league operates. So go back, so we'll go back to sort of the 4 imports which we've got for the upcoming season. So last season it was 3, this season it's 4. So perhaps there's a bit more flexibility for coaches in terms of the way that they operate. So we already know there's going to be some import netminders in the league. So for example, Hayden Levine has already been confirmed at returning at Peterborough Phantoms. That leaves some 3 import
yeah.
slots now. So how do you see teams with an import netminder going about with regards to their other 3 imports? Sort of what positions could you see?
A lot of D men coming into the league. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously we've just signed a new forward.
Mhm.
So we just signed a new forward coming from, was it? That's from Canada. I think Jordan Stannard. There we go.
Yeah.
Got his name right there for once. Obviously he's coming for our forward. We've got one more spot left because we've obviously re-signed John Corneal, Owen Sobchak, and now we've signed him, and now we're literally waiting for his specs coming back. As me, I don't think he's going to come back. I think he's probably just like, I want to go somewhere else because
Okay.
I think his time's up here. Really, I don't think he had a great bad season. Not to, he don't, I'm not saying he's had a bad season, but I think he just needs to go somewhere else where he can play a bit better.
Okay.
But I think if we get an import netminder, which I don't think we will, because I obviously know, I think we've signed Jordan McLaughlin. I can't remember because I don't know because our signs are all over the place at the moment. But yeah. So yeah, if we get a netbot minder, it'd be pretty good. But yeah, I think the league will be kind of like a lot of import net mine. I think obviously with Bees not coming in the next season, it
Mm.
gives Basingstoke and the other teams a lot more push to go and get some of their signings done quicker.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, for myself, I think if a team's got an import netminder, I think 3 forwards is potentially a risk to go 3 forwards and an import netminder. Um, I guess it depends upon how strong their British D core is. But probably wouldn't be too
Yeah,
surprised to see a couple of forwards and maybe one D man. I think
yeah,
where things could potentially get a bit more interesting in terms of like the makeup is where teams still have a British netminder and then they got 4 import slots for skaters and how those are going to be used. Any thoughts on how teams might go about using that?
say the question again, sorry.
Yeah, so some teams are going to be sticking with British netminders.
Yeah.
How do you see those teams going about with having now a 4th import skate that they can bring in? Sort of what positions can you see them covering with that?
I think probably more deep. I think probably smaller teams like Basingstoke coming back into the league, they'll be wanting a lot of maybe 2 imports forward.
Mhm.
Um, obviously, they've just returned back to the league. But I think with the league with going to 4 imports, I think most teams will probably use either the forward spots, netminders, or mostly D-men spots. Like we did when we signed Brock Bartholomew back in the day, we used most of our D-men spots to, sign to get the players we need.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I could see a lot of teams go for 3 forwards and one import D man. Um, a 2-and-2 split could be interesting. There's
Yeah,
if you can stock up on get a couple of really strong import D men in place, and you've got you know 2 or 3 very good Brit D men, that gives you a strong defensive core. And I mean, realistically, if you want to be winning titles, playoffs, cups, whatever, you're
yeah,
probably going to need to be tight at the back. I mean,
you
yeah. Do
definitely.
you know what? You could get lucky and win every game of pond hockey like 9-7 or something like that. But
That would mean. Yeah.
well, as spectators, it might be certainly as a neutral. As a fan, I don't know if I'd be wanting that every week. It might be a bit nerve inducing, I think.
Boring.
Well, I don't think it'd be boring, but it might be a bit scary to be watching week in, week out. I mean, I think Leeds have sort of
Yeah.
shown it. It's the ability to go to places and sort of grind out, sort of those 3-1 wins and stuff like that. So even when you're not playing well, just sort of finding that way. So yeah, there could be a bit more, I guess, flexibility in terms of sort of that split between forwards and D men. I mean, certainly when it was two import
Yeah.
league, I think it was just two forwards and sort of that was that. Three imports, yeah, we start to see a few D men come in. This might be the season where, we see a few more import D men knocking around the league, I think.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we've discussed positions. Another question that I'm interested in is, and again, this happened sort of back in the Premier League days when it was four import league. An enforcer, a tough guy, somebody who's prepared to drop the gloves. Do you see a team or any teams going down that route?
Oof. That's a very good question, actually. I'd probably say Leeds definitely. They let drop the gloves a few times. I think Leeds or maybe MK because MK
Okay.
are very good at like just getting the enforcers in. I think was Ross Venus more like a enforcer? Obviously, I don't really know. I don't really know much about MK Lightning.
No, no, I wouldn't have said so. No, I wouldn't have put him in that category, sort of as, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe you
it's fair.
could sort of get under the skin, but in terms of sort of regularly dropping the gloves and building space for teammates, I don't know if I wouldn't be putting him in that category. Um, it's what I'm.
Probably say Jake Bricknell from
Mhm.
Swindon. Obviously, he's gone to Bristol. That correct?
Yes, yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's just meant sure. Yeah, obviously he's a enforcer. You've seen him. I've seen all over Hockey Fights UK. Just obviously dropping the gloves every game, most games. But yeah, if we could have him as an enforcer, Bobby Chamberlain, him would be great together.
Yeah, again, I think,
Definitely.
yeah, I just think with the points that Bricknell puts up, it's difficult to put him sort of in that enforcer category. Myself, I think I'm kind of split on this one. I mean, if you're a team that hasn't been making the playoffs, well, just trying to do what Leeds do or MK do, I don't think it's going to work because quite simply they've got, better players. So it could be that route
Yeah,
to perhaps try and unsettle them and try and get some results that way. But then on the flip side, it's sort of, I'm going back now sort of 15, 16 years. The game has changed since then. I,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think a team will, but if they do, it could then suddenly become a bit of an arms race as other teams go out looking to see if
yeah,
there's anybody that they could sign to sort of level that playing field there. So I can't see it happening, but if you're a team that hasn't been making the playoffs and you want to try and mix it up and,
yeah,
and play a different style, it could be a way forward, perhaps.
yeah. We tried that, but failed miserably a few times.
So we've discussed four imports for this season. We've kind of thought
Yeah.
about in the future, sort of 5 or 6 imports, or potentially even more. You're in charge of the league. What is the ideal number of imports for you?
Oof. I'd probably stick to four, as you said earlier. You don't want to bring in too many imports in because they're just legal at the elite league.
Mm.
Because obviously, if you do that, there'll be not many pathways for the Brits to get up to the elite league. They just most Canadians going up and down, up and down. But if we keep it at four, maybe one season we just maybe like a few months we just trial 5 imports and see how that goes. But if not, we could just stick to four. Keep I don't know. I'd probably make a new rule. I'd probably sign when you get these foreign imports, you sign 2 forwards, a D man, and a netminder.
Okay. Be
Instead of
interested to
saying,
see.
obviously, most teams normally go for either forwards or D-men. Because obviously, I know like MK Lightning's just. I don't think they've signed any imports actually. I don't think so.
MK haven't announced any yet. No.
No.
There's a couple of teams who've still yet to announce any. I think
Yeah,
Hull are leading the way with 3 announced, and
definitely. Oh,
we'll, we'll,
definitely.
we'll get onto
Yeah, I'll
those
say on the team then. Yeah.
in just a moment. Um, Yeah, I mean, for myself, I think sort of as I've already said, four imports for me, I think strikes that really good balance. I'm intrigued though by that idea of mandating the positions for them as well. In terms of, as you
Yeah.
just mentioned, there's sort of two forwards, a D man and a netminder. Yeah, I struggle to see how that would work. I think because why? I guess why would you want to bring in, say, an import netminder if you've got, two really good British keepers? So let's take Milton Keynes for example, where
Yeah,
they've
that's
got Jordan
yeah.
Headley and Will Curlin. You know, yeah, they could bring in an
That makes
import
sense. Yeah.
netminder, but I don't know how it would significantly
Go out to be
strengthen
fair.
the team there. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with four, but I'd still want it to stay for the clubs to decide in terms of what positions, what players, what kind of roles they go out
Yeah,
and sign.
definitely. Yeah.
So we'll get on to Hull's imports, so we will do, leading the way with three announced already. So Owen Sobchak and Johnny Corneal, both of whom played at Hull last year, are back. And
Yeah.
I think it was last Friday, I want to say, Geordie Stallard was announced coming in from Fife
Yes.
Flyers. Thoughts on the
Yeah.
three imports for Hull then to date?
Pretty good imports. We've had a good season with two imports already. We had, excuse me, we've had Alwyn Sobchak with obviously leading the points,
Yep.
assists, not the goals, but Chivo was absolutely really good last season. I think he's going to even have a better season. With Johnny
Okay.
Corneal coming halfway through the season, he made an impact on the team. Definitely came in. Was it three? I think he scored a hat trick in the first game or two goals. Something like that. Can't exactly remember, but yeah, he's a very good player for our team. Obviously, Manchester Storm have close links together. That's why we're getting the good imports from the elite league. But yeah, the new signing, yeah, I looked at his stats. I found out he was actually imported, no, not imported, sorry, drafted to the Winnipeg Jets in 2016.
Okay.
And obviously, I saw a couple of his stats. He didn't. I don't think he had the best season last season at Fife. Obviously, Fife Flyers was about to obviously get bought out by another owner if they come down to
Yeah.
the NHIL or up to the elite
Yeah.
league. So yeah, obviously a bit of a tough season. So obviously, with him coming down, I think that'll probably help him a bit more, get more experience in the league, not the national league, and getting more points and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I mean, just sort of take a look at numbers for last season. So Owen Sobchak, as you mentioned, sort of about the assists. So only, I use only very advisedly here, but only 29 goals. But he did get 86 assists
Yeah,
to give him 115 points for the season.
yeah,
As you said, leading point scorer across the league. So I mean, you can't really go wrong
no, you
bringing
can't.
back a player who's putting those numbers up.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Johnny Corneal, pretty even split actually. So 32 goals, 34 assists to give him 66 points. So pretty healthy. And Geordie Stallard up at Fife. And I mean, as you said, situation at Fife last year
Yeah,
was pretty tough going. 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points. So be interested to see what he could do with a full season at a club that I would say is probably a bit more stable than Fife was last season.
yeah, definitely.
We discussed Hull. Also have to do the same for Telford Tigers. I've got to talk about the Tigers, of course.
That's fine.
So
Yeah, of course.
we've announced two imports to date. So returns, both of them in David Thompson and Eric Henderson.
Nice.
I think that sums it up quite nicely then.
Definitely. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah. I mean, for both of those, they were players that we brought in October last season. They've got some healthy numbers. Quite simply, whether they get up to sort of like 115, 120 points, I don't know. But I think they're both, 100-point season players.
Yeah, definitely.
So Thompson last season, 31 games for 29 goals, 33 assists, and Henderson, 42 games for 29 goals and 55 assists.
Not bad.
So yeah, you know, they're basically sort of 2 points a game they were going along at.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it was February, Henderson was averaging 3 points a game
Oof.
for
That's
the
good. That.
month. Yeah, it
Really
was
good. Yeah.
ridiculous. So, I mean, 150 points a season would be lovely, but
Yeah.
realistically, I think
Dreaming.
that's a bit unlikely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a whole fan, you hear those numbers. That's two imports, and that's for Tigers. Thoughts about that, other than nice from the Tigers' perspective?
I mean, you guys obviously, you've been a lot longer in the league than we have, obviously the team. So you've had all the experience of the imports and stuff like that. But yeah, you've got two good, strong players, obviously in the league, especially Eric Henderson. Once he gets a puck, you're not seeing that thing again. He's going in the back of the net. But yeah, if we could take him over, we would. But obviously, you've just signed him again. But yeah, what was the other one signed? Sorry,
David Thompson,
David Thompson. He's
yeah,
also good as well. Is he a D man or forward?
forward,
Oh,
yeah,
forward.
centre.
Okay, so yeah, he's same like Eric Henderson. He's just if they're are they on the same line or is it different lines they're both on?
Yeah, they sort of came as a pair. Have played as a pair, apart from
Okay, so
when Thompson was out with his injury. So I would be surprised if they weren't on the same line next season. Yeah,
yeah. So basically, yeah. So you're literally like a best duo on. You literally got a good duo on line. Basically, that's what you want on the team. Two like, good friends on a duo team. Basically, just as soon as you get the pockets in the
please,
back of the
please,
net.
please, please, lots of times. Yeah, cool. So we've talked about Hull, so the team that you support. We talked about Tigers, the team I support. Um, we'll go out across the league. Any other import signings that have caught your eye to date?
um, Probably. I don't know. Don't think the guy coming from Manchester Storm's an import, is he? He's come to Sheffield Steel Dogs. Don't
Oh,
think so.
is it Garcia, the defenseman?
Let me just check. Yeah, let me have a double check.
Yeah, he's an import.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously Steel Dogs obviously coming into obviously partnered with Steelers in the Elite League,
Yeah.
so they've obviously just signed the player. So to be fair, I've looked at his stats; he's pretty decent. So I think Sheffield have just signed a pretty decent player for once. So I think they're gonna have a strong season, better season than they had last season because they were just absolutely shocking in the playoffs. Seeing Schwab, I was like, you can do better than that. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
good signing.
yeah, I think losing an import so late really did hurt the Steel Dogs going into that
Yeah,
playoffs, but it is the nature of working with the Steelers. I mean that's probably like an entire episode in itself, but personally
yeah,
I think if Sheffield Steelers are calling up players from Steel Dogs, that's signs that it's working. Um, for myself, I've got three that have caught the eye actually.
yeah.
Um, first one, perhaps relatively obvious, but Jake Bricknell moving to Bristol. Um, so last season at Swindon, 57 goals, 50 assists for 107 points.
Yeah,
Um, Bristol have been bottom of the league.
consistently.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now they go and bring in a player who can put up 107 points.
Yeah, that's what they need.
Yeah, that's a pretty big statement of intent, I would say, particularly coupled
Yeah,
with they brought in Josh Batch as well from Cardiff Devils.
yeah. Two
That
good
makes
players.
them, yeah, that
A
makes
fiery team.
them much more of a threat, I would say,
Yeah.
for getting a playoff place. It's going to
Definitely.
make it tighter at the bottom of the league. Um,
Give him
now
a kick
whether
up the
Britain,
ass. Yeah.
yeah, now whether Bricknell can put up quite as many points in a team that's perhaps not as strong as Swindon, I don't know, but there's still some serious
They're gonna
firepower
fire.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be good fire
Uh,
next season, hopefully.
yeah. Second one that's caught my eye, Jarrett Baker to the Raiders, a D man. But seems they're a pretty physical D man. So 23-24, 103 penalty minutes in 21 games. So
Wow.
that looks though they've signed a nice physical presence there at the
Definitely.
back.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing how that one works.
Yeah.
And the third one has caught my eye. Another D man, Olivier Arsenault, re-signing at Solway. It'll be his third season there, so
Yeah.
evidently becoming part of the furniture. And he put up 43 points last season in 54 games. So not bad if you can get D-Man going along with those kind of numbers and
Yeah.
becoming part of the furniture up there. So those are the three that have caught my eye to date. But
Yeah.
there's still some teams we've yet to announce. No team's announced all four yet, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of others that sort of jump out over the coming weeks as we get closer to the start of the next season.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for joining Jake and sharing some thoughts about imports for the league and for our respective teams for the upcoming season. Um, if you'd like to do as Jake's done and guest on an episode and talk about something in the world of National Ice Hockey League, please do get in contact. But in terms of this, again, just one more time of saying great thanks to Jake for turning up, giving up his time and having a chat about it. And I hope you've enjoyed the episode and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.